Okay, hello everybody. How are you doing today? Hope you're doing fine. Um, it's time for another meditation session. This one is entitled Kensington. You might say it's torture. So, as usual, find a quiet, dark place away from distractions and make yourself comfortable. I'll give you some time to get yourself situated. So, I think you've all heard of the neighborhood called Kensington. It's in Philadelphia and it has a bad reputation for rampant drug abuse, prostitution, murder, rapes, robberies, violence, etc. You can go watch videos of it on YouTube. It's a very sad place to be. Today I'm going to tell you a story about one police officer's fight to clean up this neighborhood. And when I say fight, he literally fought with his fists. The officer who shall remain nameless saw the deterioration of this neighborhood. He saw all the crime. He saw the zombie like figures living on the sidewalks. He saw the trash strewn everywhere. He witnessed the shutting down of businesses and the flight of families away from this neighborhood. He had had enough of all of this. No one in power was doing anything. It was the same perpetual madness day in and day out. Nothing changed year after year. Things just kept getting worse. So he decided to take matters into his own hands. He consorted with two of his closest work buddies and concocted a scheme to quote unquote change drug dealers one by one. His small group could be called Tonight Riders. They drove around at night hunting for drug dealers. Here goes the story. The black sedan with deep tinted windows traversed down the Kensington streets, prowling Kensington Avenue, Allegheny, Clearfield, Frankfort, etc. During the day, under normal beat, the three officers would collect intel of drug dealers making transactions. Then at night, off duty, they would ride out to find these drug dealers. On this night, the group would not have to wait too long. They spotted a known drug dealer in a red bomber jacket posted up right outside the convenience store. We got one, they said. They parked on the adjacent side street and walked around to confront him. They caught him by surprise. He didn't see it coming. When he turned around, all he saw was three big dudes, all dressed in black, with balaclavas disguising their faces. The dealer could tell there were some form. The dealer could tell that there were some form of law enforcement because of their police shields. He stood frozen in shock. Raise your arms up high and turn around. The drug dealer complied. One officer frisked him to ensure he didn't have any weapons. None was found. You're coming with us. But I didn't do anything. They handcuffed him, put him in a back seat, and started driving. Why you doing this to me? 'Cause you're selling drugs, that's why. You didn't find nothing on me. Shut your mouth. Only one of the officers, Officer Nameless, spoke to the dealer. The other two officers remained stone quiet. They drove and drove. At some point, the dealer noticed they hadn't reached the police station yet. Where are you taking me? The station is that way. I already told you to shut your beep mouth, and I'm not telling you again. Fear welled up in the drug dealer's body. He wasn't quite sure what was going to happen to him. He knew the normal routine as he was arrested before, but this felt different. Who are these guys with masks hiding their faces? Were they real police officers or assassins? The officer seated next to him pulled out a black mask and put it over the drug dealer's face to cover his eyes. They kept driving, way out to the outskirts of the city, until they arrived at a secluded area they often used. They pulled him out of the vehicle and pulled off his mask. An officer held him on each side, and the third officer, Officer Nameless, stood before him. Wham! First blow across the face. You gonna stop selling drugs. You killing people. Bam. 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 3 more punches across his face and neck. The 2 officers raised him up as he lost his footing due to the barrage of blows. Officer Nameless unleashed a flurry of more blows on the drug dealer. After each blow, he kept telling him, "You're a good man. You're a good man." The beating continued into the night. With each blow, Officer Nameless gave the drug dealer more instruction. You'll have to go get a new job starting tomorrow. Bam. You're a good man. Bam. You don't need to be doing this no more. Bam. The drug dealer cried out, "Why are you doing this to me?" "'Cause you're selling drugs." Bam. People dying out here. Bam. Take off his clothes. At this point, the drug dealer was scared shitless. What were they going to do to him? It begging him to cry out, "Please, please don't kill me." They stripped him. His drug bundle fell out of his pocket, along with a stack of cash. His bundle consisted of the drugs ice and crack. Officer Nameless picked it up and held it in front of him. "Who are you selling this for?" "Nobody." "Well, I guess nobody won't mind if I throw it away." Officer Nameless hurled a bundle of drugs as far as he could. More blows ensued. "You're going to have to go get a job. A new job. You hear me? Bam. Any job. Bam! Bam! Welcome to McDonald's. Bam! Welcome to Burger King. Bam! Welcome to Arby's. Bam! Blow after blow, the officer was literally beating sense into him. You're a good man. Bam! You don't need to be doing this anymore. Bam! The drug dealer eventually broke down and cried. Cried like a baby. He couldn't take any more. The message finally came through to him loud and clear. He hadn't suffered a beating like this since at age 13 when he was caught stealing. Deep down, he always knew of good, but instead he chose the bad lifestyle of drugs. Now it all came back to him, his life flashing before his eyes, his destiny to become something better. This formed a turning point. Unlike the story of Roots, where after being savagely beaten, Kunta Kinte devoutly said, "My name is Kunta, Kunta Kinte." The drug dealer could not show similar defiance because there was no courage or heroism in his past actions. He was a drug dealer. He was a destroyer of lives. Physically and emotionally broken, he knelt in the grass, naked, crying for what seemed to be an eternity. He howled, he wailed. Was this his rebirth? The officers put him back in the vehicle, naked and handcuffed. They left his clothes and other belongings in the field. They covered his face once again with the mask and then proceeded to drive back to the city. Not one word was uttered on the drive back by any of the vehicle's occupants. Obviously, the drug dealer had a million emotions going through him. Luckily, he was still alive. He learned a valuable lesson. They took him to his house. Officer Nameless carried him up the stairs as the other two officers remained in the vehicle. As he opened the door, his mother bawled out after seeing her son naked, battered, and bloodied. She almost fainted. "Who do this to you?" she shouted. "Who do this? Who whoop your ass?" Officer Nameless responded, "He got into some kind of trouble, but he'll be all right." Officer Nameless exited the house, and his crew of Tonight Riders drove off into the night. All right, so that was quite a story. There's a lot to unpack here. First, is vigilante justice ever warranted? Most people in a civilized society would say no. However, would they still feel the same way if their governmental institutions were ineffective and incapable of protecting the citizenry? Possibly, if vigilante acts are done in secrecy, the populace might not care as long as the outcome is viewed as positive and discreet. By any means necessary, as you would say, to get a desired outcome. You've seen and heard of governments conducting black programs in secrecy to forge outcomes. For instance, Guantanamo. Like Guantanamo, these officers use torturous methods to effect a positive outcome, to rid the community of cancerous drug dealers. In this case, however, the program was not authorized by any higher authority. Yet, it was still conducted under the guise of a government body, namely law enforcement. With that said, could the officers' actions still be considered vigilante justice? Normally, when we think of vigilante justice, we envision someone without a badge acting outside of the law to override the work of law enforcement. Is it vigilante justice if the acts are in fact being perpetuated by law enforcement? Some would say the officer's actions were a last resort. Think about how long the war on drugs has been waged, and to date, it has been an utter failure. Possibly, unconventional, out of the box methods are warranted at this juncture. Let's consider the mindset of this officer, Officer Nameless. Instead of Officer Nameless, should he instead be called Officer Shameless? One has to wonder what drives a person to such extreme rogue behavior, especially one who took an oath to protect and follow the law. He felt the need to consort with his coworkers in secrecy and formed this group as opposed to going to his superiors and proposing a special task force. Maybe he did go to his superiors in the past, and maybe he was shut down. Maybe there was no budget for his operation, or maybe his plan was just too radical. Possibly he didn't trust his superiors. In the end, though, he obviously felt strongly about his convictions to go forward and conduct these acts. Maybe he was at his wits' end. One question that could be asked, though, is why did his team disguise their faces but display their police shields? Could it be they were ashamed of their actions? Are disguised superheroes like Batman, Superman, Spider Man, or the Justice League ashamed of their acts? I believe the clandestine nature of their actions may bring illegitimacy to their cause. What, if anything, distinguishes this wild bunch from common criminals? Although the officers may have had good intentions, they crossed a precipice with their violent acts. It's a point of no return. Who knows, maybe they're close to retirement and don't care much about what happens to them. It's also discomforting to see they use tactics eerily similar in nature to that of the KKK. For instance, riding out at night under the cover of darkness in disguise, masks versus hoods, to terrorize a certain group, drug dealers versus black people, and use extreme violence, beatings versus whippings. And don't forget the similarity in names. i.e., to Night Riders versus Knights of the Ku Klux Klan. After a certain age, parents stop beating their kids. In some cases, there are parents who have never beaten their kids. The biblical quote, spare the rod and spoil the child, is often bandied as justification for corporal punishment. The officers in this story probably felt they were playing a fatherly role and giving the drug dealer a quote unquote spanking. One could ask, who are they to take this parochial approach with someone else's child? And further, if violent intervention should be done, shouldn't it be led by family members, not some unknown stranger? I can see both sides to this argument, although I despise the effects hard drugs have had on society. I would definitely feel uncomfortable if one of my family members were savagely beaten. People have always used force to change behaviors. In this case, the drug dealer was emasculated, belt buckle, buck naked, and all. I hate to use this last analogy, but he was quote unquote buck broken. After this, why would he want to continue being a drug dealer? His facade of toughness has been obliterated. He no longer has any street cred. If the drug dealer ultimately changes his life, could this operation be viewed as a success? This story could also be one of rebirth. Follow me on this one. What is the imagery you think of when a child first comes into this world? The newborn child is wailing hysterically, naked, covered in blood, and ultimately delivered to his mother. Isn't this the same set of circumstances that happened here too in this story? The drug dealer in the field, at his lowest moment, was naked, crying, covered in blood, and ultimately delivered back to his mother. So that is the conclusion of the story in the follow on synopsis. And to everyone out there, if you're thinking of acting out and being bad, just remember there is always someone out there too who can give you blows and bring you back down to earth. There is always a bigger bully than you. So before it gets to that point, just be humble. Thank you all and have a good day.